Yeah, Jai Gurudev. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankara Vavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Continuing a lot of stories again from the Puranas. I think today touched upon clarified the sage Bhrigu was actually the son of Varuna, and he's a Brahma Manasa Putra, similar to Narada. So it's nice to just recollect all these stories and a lot of one story leading to another story. It's nice. But today, I think we will start with Atma Bodh. If anyone wants to share anything about chapter 10, please do. If not, we'll start Atma Bodh.
Hari Om, I just have one question. Ashwatva tree is people banyan or Ashoka tree? That I wanted to confirm with Nana, but he was so much in flow, no? So I did not interrupt.
Banyan tree, right?
I think it's the people tree.
Yes, it is people tree. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is what is there in all these temples. And you normally find a people tree getting that whatever marriage to the neem tree. People is the one that has that what shape? The shape of
Heart kind, no?
Yeah, it is.
Heart, right?
It's like the heart kind, yeah.
But the translation where it is written ficus is then the banyan.
No, the banyan tree is not in the temple though. It's called Arasamaram. They call it in Tamil. Arasamaram. I don't know. That's what
Maybe
is it?
tomorrow we can confirm with Nana ji then.
Yeah, Ashwatha tree.
In Wikipedia, it is shown like the people tree, the ficus.
Yes, it is Ashwatha. Ashwatha is people tree.
How do you spell that? It's like a people or just like P-I-P-L?
P-E-E-P-A-L.
Okay, thank you. Dhanyavad.
Regarding this people, the ficus, there is some, I don't remember the exact name, but it's called ficus, something to do with Krishna only. It's a variety of the people tree, which actually is like this this palada, how to feed, when from the leaf itself, the leaf is so shaped, when it can hold water or liquid or milk. Apparently when you drop it down, it drops one drop at a time. It's actually like, let me relieve that from Dr. Prabhakar had retrieved this kind of special kind of people tree that he has he had mentioned. It was being used to feed Krishna apparently. So Should we start with? Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
You're seeing Atma Bodh, right? So if anybody else wants to share anything about today, nice stories about
It's
Sagara.
not. Oh,
Yeah?
sorry. It's not showing the Atma Bodh. It says some meditation.
Correct. This is Swami Chinmayananda's Atma
Oh,
Bodh. It
oh.
starts with the Prarthana Shloka.
Okay, got it.
Now,
Okay.
I have a thing. This is 146 pages. I can't recollect. Did we do Atma Bodh Manana? Did we read the whole the shloka and the artha and the PDF? Did we do that?
I mean, we did Atma Bodh, but through the Chinmaya's Atma Bodh only we did when we
Yeah,
reviewed.
I don't
But
think we started Manana at that time.
No, we didn't.
We didn't do, right?
No, we didn't do.
So, see, the number of shlokas in Atma Bodh is 68. Do we want to just read the shloka and the meaning? Or do we want to go in depth, go to all the whole explanation that Swamiji has given? That is 146 pages. That might take a couple of sessions for us. I think I'll leave it to the whole group, whether we want to do it in detail or just do the shlokas and go on to chapter 3.
No, that's fine. I think,
I think we'll do the slokas and go on, because
Yeah, we'll do the shlokas and the meaning and then go on to chapter 3. Right?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But if
So
you have a question, maybe we can review it a little bit in detail in that case.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because
what is the
only in the
concept?
group we can go in details. But then if everyone wants to do only the shlokas.
No, the thing is about this Atma Bodh, I think it's okay to review it again only because, I mean, that's my opinion, but you can all decide together. Only because it's a knowledge about Atma.
And it's the essence as well. It's the main essence, which is fundamental in every chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, I believe.
Yeah. So whoever wants to decide, that's fine. But for me, I'm okay to review the whole thing.
Yeah, same here. Because only in the group it's happening. You sit on your own and do it. It's not happening for me at least.
It may happen, but it will be slow. At least you'll be thinking something else.
And contemplation, what we do in a manana is very, very detailed and very nice. So I don't think individually when we are listening, it is possible.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll do the whole thing.
okay.
We'll stay focused on this, and we'll spend little time on like, we don't need to go through the whole like the Vibhuti yoga right now. It might take another couple of days. There are going to be a lot of stories coming up. We can, if you want to go through the stories again, maybe we can listen to the YouTube one more time. But we'll start with Atma Bodh, our Manana, so we can spend more time on this. And
Dr. Dharma, is it then recorded? Because I did not.
Come again, Dr. Ritu?
I have written.
Yeah, it is recorded. It is recorded.
This is record. Oh, yeah, this is on record. This is being recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Pratah smarami hridi samspuradaatmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam Yat swapna jagara sushuptamaveti nityam Tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sanghaha. In the early hours of the day, I meditate upon the essential self, clearly experienceable in the heart cave, that which is existence, knowledge, bliss in nature, that which is the supreme goal, the Paramahamsa state, that which is the fourth plane of consciousness, which constantly illumines all experiences in the dream, waking, and deep sleep conditions. I am that partless Brahman, not this assemblage of matter envelopments. No scientific textbook, I'm reading the introduction as well. No scientific textbook can be prescribed to the students without an initial chapter giving the definition of the terms and terminologies that are used in the body of the book. The scientist visualizes the world from his viewpoint. He sees truths that are not visible to others. And since he sees visions which are not the common property of all, in his language, he will have to use unconventional words which have for him some special imports and secret suggestions. If these extraordinary words are not rightly understood by the teacher and the taught, transference of knowledge would be impossible. Therefore, in every textbook of science, the first few chapters describe the categories. Sufferings and sorrows form a part of life's game. There is none who has not undergone pressing agonies in his own day to day life, either physically, mentally, or emotionally. Yet, nobody seems to invite them. All that we do is to avoid as far as possible this aspect of life coming in contact with us. The more we want to escape its cruel jaws, the more it takes an endless variety of subtler and sharper ways of attacking. Physical ailments form but one tribe of hordes that barbarously attack us. Even more relentless and cruel are our mental sufferings. As we progress in our knowledge of the curative processes for ameliorating the physical sufferings, we observe that the mind's ill health affects the body much more than what one could imagine. And this kind of suffering proves all the more difficult to deal with. Mental disintegration is more dangerous, for it brings about not only misery to the sufferer, but a kind of dangerous disharmony in an excruciating intolerance with the surroundings of such an individual. On the whole, it means each one of us who is suffering. And is there anyone who is not? From this inner malady is an unhappy center spreading all around him unhappiness and restlessness. A solution to these problems, very complicated and extremely confusing to the average mind, is what we seek individually and collectively. The results of such investigations conducted by the ancient inquirers and the data collected from their personal experiences constitute the bulk of our scriptures. Today, instead of searching for any radical solution and special cure for this problematic disease and consequent suffering in life, what man actually does in society is to collect around him various kinds of escape distractions and compromise dopes through all kinds of foul methods. He vainly hopes to drown his sorrows in ever so many unhealthy indulgences. By these methods, at best, man succeeds in turning his mind away from the actual facts of life as they are. To analyze scientifically and to observe closely the nature and behavior of our outer world of objects and the inner instruments of experience in us are the methods employed in the Upanishads, by which the seers have discovered a happy solution for the great problems of man and his life. I'm reading this again. To analyze scientifically and to observe closely the nature and behavior of our outer world of objects and the inner instruments of experience in us are the methods employed in the Upanishads, by which the seers have discovered a happy solution for the great problems of man and his life. Vedanta is the science of life. It explains the art of living. It points out the perfect goal of existence and provides schemes and methods by which sincere seekers can make their pilgrimage easily successful. Since the teacher has to point out a goal transcending the ordinary realms of experiences, he has to borrow his vocabulary from the everyday language and present them, no doubt, strangely dressed up in special significances. Naturally, the obvious dictionary meaning will not be a true guidance in digesting and assimilating the declarations of the scriptures. The golden key by which the scriptures are opened and its divine knowledge brought out is found in the books like Atma, which explain exhaustively the categories in Vedanta. Such volumes are called the Prakarana books. Knowledge available in the world of books is found in two types of records: textbooks of the science, explaining the theory and technique, are called the Shastras, and the books that explain the terms and terminologies used in the Shastra books are called the Prakarana books, Prakarana Granthas. Panchadashi, Viveka Chudamani, Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh are some of the examples of the latter types of books. They explain the Shastra and they do not contribute any original thought. Sri Shankara took upon himself as his life's great mission the reorientation of Hinduism. After having written his commentaries upon the sacred books of our culture, he provided the seekers with a voluminous devotional literature, singing his own love of the Lord. In the days of his perfect maturity, he took up his pen to write introductory books, introducing the theme of Vedanta for the infants in the spiritual world. Atma Bodha is one of them. This is not an original book inasmuch as there is not a single idea in it which is an entirely original contribution of Sri Shankara. Every one of them is culled from the garden of the Upanishads and strung together on the cord of his poetry, interspersed with his exquisite similes. This wonderful garland, so offered by Shankara to adorn Mother Shruti, is Atma Bodha. As a modern materialistic man comes to study more and more the contents of the Upanishads, it is possible that he feels cheated of the cheaper joys of his previous easier life of mental distractions and physical dissipations. This negative feeling of a nameless, sad regret saps out all enthusiasm in the student. But this feeling comes only so long as one has not fully realized the fact that the usual Broadway distractions have a knack of wearing away too soon their enchanting fascinations. One gets quickly bored of such superficialities. An intelligent person very quickly loses all his attractions for such things. He discovers that his mind has a tendency to fly away from all its objects of entertainment and come to torment itself by its own thoughts that are indeed very unpleasant for itself. A man of indiscriminate intellect never questions why it is so, but instead he hurriedly discovers a new set of excitements and a fresh pattern of distractions to engage his mind's momentary fancy. He may even turn to God of the usual formalistic religions, visit churches, mosques, or temples, give away something in charity, build a house of God or a hospital, run to a hall of sermons, and even take up to some forms of prayer. But all of them are again to him a new variety of distraction to keep his mind away from weeping at itself and thus escape its own suicidal brutalities. People who follow thus religion as an escape from themselves ultimately come to gain nothing except perhaps a lingering sorrow dulled by a blind faith that benumbs his very capacity to perceive his own tragedies of life. Scientific detachment, honest observation, logical conclusions, and heroic decisions alone can help an individual to come away from his own life's fallacies. Atma bodha supplies all these requisites, and Shankara has made the scientific treatise a chiseled beauty with a distinct cadence and rhythm of its own. The poet in Shankara is let loose in these 68 stanzas. No verse is here which has not one simile or other. Each is a picture, a sure and striking example. These examples are real hammer strokes that nail the elusive Vedantic ideals onto the immature comprehension of all early students. They are all such striking examples, so pregnant with suggestions that to ruminate upon them is in itself a profitable meditation for the new initiates. May the infinite effulgence, the silent witness of all our actions, bless us all. Swami Chinmayananda. It's so beautiful. No, not only is Swami Chinmayananda in his Purva Paksha, he was a he's a journalist, so he makes no mincemeat of words. He uses such strong words, and this is so true, isn't it?
Yeah, so
In
true.
order to escape, yeah,
Very nice. It's very attract. I mean, very real to our own life.
see, this is there, no? See, this is what Dr. Mara's grazing cows comes back here. As a modern materialistic man comes to study more and more the contents of the Upanishads, it is possible that he feels cheated of the cheaper joys of his previous easier life. So there are times when you see around you people, they're enjoying their life. They're going to movies, they're doing parties and everything else. They seem to be enjoying life. You might wonder, why am I doing all of this? And this negative feeling of a nameless sad regret saps out all enthusiasm in the student. This feeling comes so long as one has not fully realized the fact that the usual Broadway distractions have a knack of wearing away too soon. And one quickly gets bored of such superficialities. How he has hammered it up in there. And then he also
Yeah.
talks of rituals over here. You see this? Talks of pilgrimages. That is also a kind of distraction.
Pilgrimages is a distraction, he says.
See, he discovers that his mind has a tendency to fly away from all its objects of entertainment and come to torment itself by its own thoughts that are indeed very unpleasant for itself. See, when we go within, we are actually, that's what even Gurudev says, a person who is a sincere seeker is actually goes through a lot of pain. because he is aware of his thoughts. A normal ignorant person who is not on the path may not even be aware of his thoughts. But a seeker is actually tormented by his thoughts because he's aware of all his thoughts coming up. So he's wondering why. There, if you're indiscriminate, he would never question, but instead he hurriedly discovers a new set of excitements and a fresh pattern of distractions to engage his mind's momentary fancy. So, but therefore, there, if you use some viveka, if you're not careful, you might just lead into some other distractions which might seemingly turn to God. Therefore, you visit churches, mosques, and temples, give away charity. All those are good, not that they're not good, but they are distracting you away from your goal, which is self-realization. But all of them are again to him a new variety of distractions to keep his mind away from weeping at itself and thus escape its own suicidal brutalities. So he says, scientific detachment, honest observation, logical conclusions, and heroic decisions alone can help an individual to come away from his own life's fallacies. And this is what Atma bodha gives us.
Yeah. Now, what I want to share is like, those medical school days I was telling you, how difficult it was looking at other people, that they're okay, they're enjoying it, but you not dropping it. But now reading all these things, even more difficult. Compared to our medical school education, that's more easier now than this one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, we are at it, and so we are going to again, it is that difficult. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like compared to looking at all the other people, what they're doing, going to movies or doing all this, now we are stuck with this whole day thinking about it and reading, lots of things to do.
So this study of Vedanta requires not just viveka, it also requires commitment.
Commitment,
That
yeah.
nishta is
So,
important.
right.
So,
But we
so
want to
when
do it. That's the reason we kind of,
correct.
trying to do this.
So the monkey mind tends to take a distractive mode, but with viveka, you must slowly befriend your mind and bring it back into on track. Yeah. Atma bodha.
Yeah.
Yes, Sabela.
Yeah, it is self decision. I mean, it is nobody has forced. I mean, it is that's why it is more commitment to your own inner self, that it is for your inner core happiness.
Correct. That is why what Swamiji is harping over here when he talks of this scientific detachment, honest observation, and all that, it's actually manana and nididhyasana. So, unless we do that, it will only be superficial. So, it is important to do that. Tapo bhikshina papanam shantanam vitaraginam mumukshunamapekshoyam atmabodho vidhiyate. Tapobihi, by austerities, kshina papanam, for those who have purified themselves, shantanam, for those who are calm, vitaraginam, for those who are free from cravings, mumukshunam, for those who are desirous of liberation, apekshaha, worthy of attending, ayam, this atma bodha, knowledge of the self, vidhiyate, being
Do you
composed
have
by,
this on your phone, or it's kind of a
yeah.
little bit smaller? Huh?
Yeah, it's my
okay.
laptop is refusing, the mouse is refusing to work, so I can't really
Work
go
on
beyond
you.
opening
I
it.
see. Okay, no
But
problem.
if
No.
you can actually enlarge it on your screen, I think. If you're on the
Yeah,
laptop,
you are able to enlarge. Yeah, I'm doing that only.
yeah, you can yourselves individually enlarge. If I enlarge little more, it's going out of my screen, so I can't see that. Let me see if I turn it around. Yeah, I think this is better. Is this better?
Yes, please. Better, better. Thank you.
Yeah, increased. I made it horizontal. I am composing the Atma bodha, this treatise of the knowledge of the self, for those who have purified themselves by austerities and are peaceful in heart and calm, who are free from cravings and are desirous of liberation. As a preamble, Sri Shankara, the great world teacher, himself a person of full realization, lays down certain qualifications for those who wish to take up the study of this text. The stanza also indicates the four aspects of the theme discussed, technically called the Anubandha Chatushtayam. Such an introduction is justified when we recognize that Sri Shankara was prescribing here an easy textbook. As he himself was a true educationist, he knew what type of students he has in his mind to whom he wanted to deliver the lessons. A high sounding style, erudite discussions, elaborate argumentations, etc., would be useless in serving the ordinary students who have discovered in themselves a growing enthusiasm to understand a little of the Vedantic philosophy, like all of us now. In the stanza, the term Atma bodha suggests the subject dealt with. The word mumukshu, seeker of burning aspirations, suggests that the object aimed at is the emancipation of the individuality from all its sense of bondage. And those who are fit for the study of this text are those who have all the four qualifications. Number one, discrimination of the real and the unreal. This is the viveka. Second, detachment from the unreal, vairagya. Third, the sixfold wealth of goodness, such as calmness, etc. That is Shamadhi Shat Sampatti. And lastly, the compelling desire for self-rediscovery. That is Mumukshutva. One can claim to have read volumes of books and exhausted a library full of the printed matter from its shelves. Yet, he may still be useless in the practical application of his knowledge. In the study of philosophy, a mere book knowledge will be ineffective when the man of study enters the field of activities. Every earnest seeker must digest the knowledge gained until they grow in him into convictions, which can then be translated into actions. When a book is written by a teacher, it is always intended for a certain type of students he has in his mind. Every textbook is addressed to a certain, by the way, for an elaborate treatment of these qualifications, please read Swamiji's talks on Viveka Chudamani. Yeah. So every textbook is addressed to a certain class of students having some given qualities. They alone will be most benefited by that given textbook. In the opening stanza of the Atma Bodha, Shankara is trying to explain who are to be his audience, whom alone he is addressing in this tiny book. Every attempt at living in self-control in all our contacts with the outer world, wherein all the efforts are dedicated for the high purpose of evolving ourselves into a diviner being, is called tapas. From pilgrimage and fasting to japa and dhyana, all spiritual endeavors at self-control are different kinds of tapas. Through these methods, one's sins, papas, become weaker. Sin is not an action in itself, but it is the tendency vasana, to live and think negatively, which is left over in our mind as a result of our own wrong actions. These sinful tendencies become weak when, for a time, we practice self control. When we have thus quietened our physical agitations through conscious and divinely dedicated self control, tapas, the natural result is a growing sense of calmness in the bosom. And when a mind has thus calmed down, in it, the rate of fluctuations created by desires and attachments will also get reduced to a minimum. An individual who has thus A. weakened his wrong tendencies through tapas, B. who has consequently found in himself a relatively greater mental calmness, C. in whom the desire agitations are temporarily at rest, if he be, D. one who is a sincere seeker wanting to liberate himself from his known personality shackles felt in his own within, he is the one who is fit for the study of the Atma bodha. This stanza does not disqualify anyone from reading and studying the text, but only suggests items of inner adjustments by which a student can make himself better tuned up to the contents of this book and come to understand better the theme discussed in it.
So even in Tattva both they describe the same kind of qualification, right?
Correct.
There was some like what
Sadhana
is in
chatushtayam kim
Taya. Mhm.
nitya
Right.
nitya vastu vivekaha ihamutrartha phalabhoga viragaha shamadhi shat sampatti hai mumukshu. So these are actually the pillars of knowledge. Any study of Vedanta requires the student to have these 4 basic minimum qualifications.
Right. But then there was also Adhikari and Vishaya Prayojana. Those are the
Anubandha
aims.
chatushtaya, right?
Yeah, Anubandha Vishaya. What is that for? They talked about.
Um,
I'm sorry that.
Correct. I know. I'm not able to recollect all of them. Anubandha
Anyway,
chatushtaya is, I think, the
that's
subject
Adhikari,
matter.
Vishaya, and
Yeah,
Prajyojana and Sambandha or something like that,
correct.
right?
Adhikari is the qualification of the student.
Qualifier. Mhm.
Vishaya is the topic of the book that is being expounded.
Mhm.
And
What is the benefit from that or something?
correct.
Prayojana is like
Prayojana is what the outcome is after you've studied that. And then
Mm.
the sambandha, I think,
Sambandha.
between
Yeah. You
correct.
connect or relate it to your life or whatever. I don't
Right.
know. Yeah.
Right.
So this one Atma Bodh, the qualification is basically you want to have the self-control and wanting to be a mukshu or those are the things, right?
Yeah, Viveka, that is the first qualification. The
Mm.
difference, the distinction between real and unreal.
Yeah, that is the one we read the sadhana sadhya, right?
Huh,
But then
correct.
the same thing we read here. I'm sorry, I missed that the sloka. Mm.
You're talking of Tapo Bhikshina Papanam.
I thought that was the one with tapo nidhiya.
Tapo Bhikshina Papanam Shantanam Vitaragina Mumukshunam Apekshoyam Atma Bodho Vidhiyate. So Tapo Bihi, that is those that have done tapas. Tapas is, Swamiji qualifies that as all those that
King and pilgrim.
yeah, it could be
No,
from
those are
pilgrimage to fasting to japa, dhyana, All spiritual
All the
endeavors and
endeavors.
self-control
Mhm.
are
Right.
different kinds of tapas. Through
And
these
very
methods,
distinct.
yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Bila.
Yeah, here very distinctly Swamiji has said from outer world to inner world, like from pilgrimage and fasting, they are all outer. To japa and dhyana is again going back to inner core.
Correct. And see, the sin, why is tapa important? Tapa is to minimize and weaken our papas. Papas are nothing but, it's not a sin. It is only a tendency, a vasana to live and think negatively. Ultimately, it is our train of thoughts, what all goes on in our mind when we encounter people and situations is what determines whether you're committing a papa or punya, which is left over in our mind as a result of our own wrong actions. Example, simple example, I mean, I can think of is social media. So, for instance, supposing I'm talking of myself, I get onto Facebook and the intention is for me to post something, but then you see a horde of other posts, and there, if I'm not careful, which can happen, I mean, that this is what happened 2-3 days back, I got so engrossed in reading everything else, which is a distraction in itself. It becomes a vasana, it becomes a tendency. So every other time when I go to Facebook and that kind of action continues, it repeats itself. So the amount of time that is spent, the amount of wasteful time, it's all distractive. They're all about nonsensical things, actually don't matter at all. But that becomes a vasana, that is a papa. So it is a result of our own wrong actions. These sinful tendencies become weak when for a time we practice self-control. So what I did was, the best thing for me to do was for me to delete the Facebook app from my mobile, so that my mind does not actually um, get distracted by going to Facebook and then uh, spend a lot of wasteful time doing things which are not useful. So that, I mean, I just wanted to share that, because that is what is sin, that is what is papa. And when we do tapas, when we exercise self-control, then those will slowly start getting weaker. That vasana keeps coming down. And therefore, when we have thus quietened our physical agitations through conscious and divinely dedicated self-control tapas, the natural result is a growing sense of calmness in the bosom. Otherwise, see, when your mind is going outwardly, the rajas in you is acting up. So desires tend to crop up. You want to do this, you want to do that. You're feeding the mind with a lot of sense perceptions. So then the mind has no way it will be calm. But when you exercise some kind of self-control, then the mind has then calmed down. In it, the rate of fluctuations created by desires and attachments will also get reduced to a minimum. Therefore, an individual who has thus weakened his wrong tendencies through tapas, who has consequently found in himself a relatively greater mental calmness, in whom the desire agitations are temporarily at rest. One who is a sincere seeker wanting to liberate himself. So, tapobihi kshina papanam, shantanam, that is, his mind is calm, vitaraginam, his desire is free from the desires and cravings, and mumukshunam. So these are the four.
I think today's Gurudev's video, what you have shared, that is also much related.
Is quite yeah, it's so
Very,
sync this, no?
yeah.
Unless your mind comes to that stillness, that fifth dimension is what Gurudev talks of, you cannot go to the subtle world. You're forever caught up in the external, in the world of gross objects. So to go deeper, the minimum requirement is to calm the mind down. Mano nishchalatva, that is what is required. Yeah. Bodhonyas sadhanebhyo hi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vannivajnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. Bodha, knowledge of the self. Anya sadhanebhyaha, in comparison with other contributory causes. He, indeed, sakshat, direct. Mokshaika sadhanam, the one means for liberation. Pakasya, for cooking. Vannivat, just as the fire. Jnanam, knowledge. Vina, without. Mokshaha, emancipation. Na, not. Siddhyati, to be accomplished. Just as the fire is the direct cause for cooking, so without knowledge, no emancipation can be had. Compared with all other forms of discipline, knowledge of the self is the one direct means for liberation. In the previous stanza, having stated so much about the need for the practice of austerity and self-control, etc., one may misunderstand from it that discipline alone may lead one to the goal divine. To remove that misunderstanding, it is stated that knowledge alone is the one direct means for liberation. The example given here and in almost every one of the subsequent verses is to illustrate the case in point as clearly as possible to the new entrant in the field of Vedanta. In cooking food, items such as vegetables, rice, spices, etc. are contributory causes, but by themselves, they can never constitute food. Fire alone can accomplish the cooking. Fire is the direct cause. Similarly, the performance of rituals, offering of gifts, the practice of austerities, control of the mind, study of the scriptures, the use of the discriminative intellect are all, no doubt, helpful factors which aid one's spiritual growth, but they do not by themselves directly lead one to liberation. Liberation is possible only when the true knowledge of our own existence is realized, or the glory of ourself rediscovered. This point is elaborated in the next stanza. So, all the rituals, the japa, dhyana, all that is just preparing the ground for us. That is like having all the ingredients required for making a dish, like your vegetables and spices and water, rice, whatever. They're only contributing. But the direct cause for making food is fire. Therefore, that true knowledge alone is what takes us to liberation. Avirodhitaya karma na vidyam vinivartayet vidya vidyam nihantyeva tejastimira sanghavat. Avirodhitaya, for not being opposed to ignorance. Karma, action. Na, not. Avidyam, ignorance. Vinivartayet, destroys. Vidya, knowledge. Avidyam, ignorance. Nihanti, destroys. Eva, verily. Tejaha, light. Timira sanghavat, as deep darkness. I'll just read the whole tatparya, this padartha. Avirodhitaya karma na avidyam vinivartayet. Vidya avidyam nihanti eva tejaha timira sanghavat. So action cannot destroy ignorance, for it is not in conflict with or opposed to ignorance. Knowledge does verily destroy ignorance, as light destroys deep darkness. Why is it not possible for the austerities and discipline to give what knowledge can offer us? The word knowledge is used here in a figurative sense. The attainment of knowledge really means the rediscovery of the self in us, which has never been non existent. It is like the dreamer gaining the knowledge of the waker. Then alone can the dreamer's dream sorrows end. If the Atman be, as described in the scriptures, ever present, all pervasive and complete, etc., then it is not to be striven for and obtained from somewhere, because it is already within us. Therefore, even divine actions do not, in the sense of a direct cause and effect, lead to the knowledge of the self. It only helps to clean the inner equipments of perception, the mirror in which we can see the true and the real nature of our own self. Supposing there is a room in darkness, sweep it for hours, or let an army of men carry the darkness in baskets and pour it out. The room will still be in darkness. Sweeping is not the right method of removing darkness. Now, let us take a light in our hand and enter the dark chamber. However thick the darkness be, in a moment it will be illumined. Similarly, the ignorance, ajnana in us that envelops the pure light of knowledge has seemingly veiled it, as though covered with ignorance. The luminous consciousness, the self, is ever bright, and the enveloping ignorance has only to be brushed aside. Remove the misunderstanding about our true nature, and the Atman stands revealed. One need not discover it somewhere, but one has only to remove the veil of ajnana when it is rediscovered. In this sense, only it is stated here that action cannot destroy ignorance. Knowledge alone is the antidote for ignorance. Very nice. Someone tell me what is the time now? I can't see the time in my. Can we continue?
So like 10:24. You know what happened? I probably deleted this Atma Bodh, I think. There was another Atma Bodh. Maybe I saw two of them and then I deleted the other one. So yeah, okay.
Yes, I will share this in the group.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Let me see. My laptop is giving me some trouble. Otherwise, I can, like what Rinal said, all those that had requested for Mahabharata, I have their email IDs. I can make a group, Manana group, and post all this directly as an email. So it will remain in your email. You can save it on your laptop.
Yeah, last week only I put all of them in the email, but then maybe I don't know why I chose this one, but maybe I just deleted two of
There
those.
is yet another Atma Bodha that was, I think, by one of the disciples of the Chinmaya mission.
Yeah, that's also Chinmaya mission, but it's a little bit different than what we are reading. Okay.
Correct. I thought we'll stick
that's
to
why I couldn't find it.
Explanation, his commentary on this. Parichinna iva jnanam tannashe sati kevalaha swayam prakashate hyatma meghapayem shumaniva. Parichinna, finite, iva, as if, Ajnanat, because of ignorance. Tat, that. Nashe sati, when destroyed. Kevalaha, alone. Swayam, by itself. Prakashate, reveals. He, verily. Atma, the self. Megha, clouds. Apaye, when pass away. Amshuman, the sun. Iva, like. So, parichinnaha iva ajnanat. Tat nashe sati kevalaha. Swayam prakashate hi atma. Megha apaye amshuman iva. The soul appears to be finite because of ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed, the self, which does not admit of any multiplicity, truly reveals itself by itself, like the sun when the clouds pass away. Practically, the same main idea contained in the last stanza is elaborated here. When it was stated that knowledge alone destroys ignorance, it suggested that mere ritualistic actions in themselves could not bring about the desired result. We need not make the sun shine by any means whatsoever. It is ever bright, high up in the sky, by itself, illumining the world all the seasons round. It is the passing clouds that hide the vision and glory of this life-giving luminary, the sun. As the clouds pass away, the sun behind gets revealed. The self is infinite. There is, in fact, no multiplicity or plurality in that one homogeneous being, the wielder of all destiny. But it is because of our misunderstanding and the consequent superimpositions that we come to labor under the ignorance about this supreme being. It alone exists as the illuminator, and it alone makes its presence known by its life-giving powers. Truly, therefore, this Atman in its supreme glory is unparalleled and in its existence and reveals in its own Satchit nature by itself. Those who are qualified to experience this truth are those who have no clinging attachment to the enchanting objects of the world outside.
It is so much in line with today's Nana's story about the sage, the one who came. Varun Dev was the father, and
Correct.
Brigu, he
Brigu.
came again, and once he realized the Ananda, the bliss, he did
He
not
never
come
came back.
even.
Correct. Correct. That is true. So again, it is coming back to the basic thing that we have to work on our ragas and dveshas. Therefore, once that clinging attachment to the enchanting world of objects outside becomes thinner and thinner, then the possibility of we are then qualified to experience the truth. Ajnana kalusham jivam jnanabhyasad vinirmalam kritva jnanam swayam nashet jalam katakarenuvat. Ajnana kalusham, stained by ignorance, jivam, jivatman, the self that has been contaminated by ignorance, jnanabhyasat, from constant practice of knowledge, vinirmalam, pure, kritva, having made, jnanam, knowledge, swayam, itself, nashet, disappears, jalam, water, katakarenuvat, as the powder of the kataka nut. So, ajnana kalusham jivam jnanabhyasat vinirmalam kritva jnanam swayam nashet jalam kataka renuvat. Constant practice of knowledge purifies the self, jivatman, stained by ignorance, and then disappears itself as the powder of the katakar nut settles down after it has cleansed the muddy water. So this is like that last stick that you stoke the fire. Even that has to be offered. So therefore, knowledge also you have to relinquish. An individual is here in this stanza defined as the self that has been contaminated by the ignorance. Spiritual ignorance gives rise to the agitations of the intellect and the blabberings of the mind. The mind intellect equipment reflects the light of consciousness, and the self, thus conditioned in the mind and intellect, is the individuality jiva. The one suffering the limitations of matter in this ego, which is comparable with our own reflections that we see in mirrors. The one suffering the limitations of matter is this ego, which is comparable with our own reflections that we see in mirrors. It is but natural that we look distorted if the reflecting surfaces are concave or convex. The ugliness of our reflections can end only when the reflecting surfaces are either destroyed or straightened. The perversions of the individual can be ended only when the mind intellect has become steady and clean. An absolutely cleaned and steadied mind is no more a mind, since mind is but the thought flow. Where the mind has ended, there the ego center, perceived so long, existing as an individuality sense, rebounds back to its original nature, the self. The quietness of the mind and the ultimate sublimation of all its thought currents is a single process accomplished by meditation, jnana abhyasa. The process of negating our identifications with the false matter envelopments and asserting our divine spiritual nature constitute the art of meditation. And this process is later on explained exhaustively in the stanzas that follow in this very same textbook. If the continuous memory of I am the matter is the ego center, no doubt it can be replaced by another constant thought current as I am the self. But then there is again a continuous flow of thought, and therefore, even that experience, vritti jnanam, is only a conditioned and finite one which cannot be absolute. This doubt is answered in the stanza under discussion when it says that meditation, after having sublimated the mind, ends itself. Our attempts to sleep ends when we start sleeping. The example given here is that of the cleaning nut, the powder of which was used in ancient India for cleaning muddy water. During the rainy season, when the well or river waters were all muddy, they used to put the kataka dust on the surface of the water in their buckets. The powder becomes slightly slimy and forms a continuous film. Being denser, it settles down, carrying along with it all the minute particles of dirt held suspended in the water. In this process, not only the dirt goes down, but the agent we had used also settles down, leaving the clear water in the bucket, which can be decanted and used. In modern times, we use in towns a little alum, which also acts much the same way. Yeah, so maybe we'll stop here today. So, the knowledge that we use also ultimately settles down, just like the kataka dust, kataka nut.
I like the word be nirmalam. Actually, nirmalam itself is a pureness, but be nirmalam means extra purity.
Yeah, correct. Be nirmalam.
So you choose Chinmaya, say description the Atma bodha over the other one because this is more descriptive? Is that it? Or
Not
is
that
it
it's
some?
more descriptive. I mean,
Mm.
which is the other Atma Bodh you're talking? You mean only the stanzas?
No, that actually has explanation too. It has a blue color.
Correct. That was the one of the disciples. I think he
Right.
has
That
wrote.
also from Chinmaya Mission only.
Yeah, that is put up there. But
Mm.
I thought because even Tattva Bodh, I think we read Swami Tejomayananda's commentary, and
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just wanting to know. I mean, I have the other one. So anyway, you said you'll post this one
I
too.
will post this one. Okay.
Okay.
So we
Right,
did
thank
5
you.
stanzas today of 68. So
Mm.
maybe we'll take about maybe a week or so. We'll see. We'll go as it goes. We'll go with the flow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Nice.
Jai Gurudev, this is so beautiful.
Summarizing this, what we've learned today is that from the world of objects and the distractions of the world outside, once you become a seeker, you there is an element of the qualifications required are for you to have calmed your mind down of its agitations with this tapobihi, that is doing all these austerities, tapas, japa, all those. Therefore your mind becomes, you're at least withdrawing your mind from the external world, and then it comes to a state of calmness, a steady state where the mental agitations of desires and cravings have settled down. Tapobihi kshina papana, getting rid of sins. Sins are nothing but these vasanas, this wrong train of thoughts that tend to draw us back into the world of objects, make us do wrong actions. Kshina papana, shantanam, so the mind gets calm and steady. Vitaraginam, free from cravings and aversions. Then this knowledge can take place. And then that knowledge alone, just like how fire is required to make a dish, all the others are only contributing. The spices, rice, fruits, vegetables, whatever could be, they're only contributing factors. Similarly, all the rituals and all that we do, japa, dhyana, including a sudarshan kriya, that also becomes only a sadhana tool to calm the mind down. Ultimately, it is the fire, which is nothing but knowledge, that will take us to this. Just like how, unless, and then the next sloka is about actions. No amount of action can bring you to this point. It is only knowledge that can do it. Like no amount of sweeping buckets of taking out buckets of darkness will remove darkness. It is only that light, when you take it in, that will illumine the whole room. Similarly, it is only with knowledge. And all those that we do are only to prepare the ground so that knowledge can take place.
Very beautiful, very beautiful.
And then finally, even knowledge, just like how Kataka Renuvat, just like how that also settles down, once you realize, then even the knowledge kind of, and then disappears itself. The knowledge itself disappears as the powder settles down after it's cleansed the muddy water. Constant practice of knowledge purifies the self, stained by ignorance. So because the self is what is, you don't need to gain or become the self. It is there. It is only that we have to remove this veil of ignorance. Just like how we clean a mirror. If the mirror is concave or convex, you find a distorted image, which is what we are finding now. That is why we're going through all the sorrows and pains and misery and suffering and all that. So, because we've not realized our true self. So, cleaning up the mirror with constant practice of knowledge, then even that, once you see yourself, your vision is clear, even that is not required. The knowledge also settles down. Yeah. Fine. So we'll continue tomorrow. Does anyone want to share anything?
No, just the Antakaran Shuddhi it comes down to, right?
Down to Antakarana Shuddhi. True. Very true. Okay. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev and Hari Om.
Jai Gurudev.
There, Hari Om. Thank